Incredible journey. Shy rancher reveals unexpected proposal after poor girl begs for a job. The sun beat down mercilessly on Ellie as she trudged through her small town, her heart heavy with desperation. She could feel the weight of loss, the gaping void where her parents once stood. With every step, the memories of their laughter echoed in her mind, an unbearable reminder of what she'd lost. Juggling dead-end jobs only deepened the pit of despair in her stomach, leaving her more exhausted than ever. All she wanted was a chance, a way to break free from the suffocating struggle of poverty and grief. It was then that she heard whispers about Jake O'Reilly, a shy rancher known for his work ethic and isolation. Therefore, determined to reach for something brighter, Ellie finally approached the sprawling O'Reilly horse ranch. As she stood before the ranch, nerves twisted in her stomach. She hesitated. Could she really ask him for a job? What if he turned her away just like everyone else? The gossip that surrounded Jake made her question her sanity. He was a wealthy man with a legacy, and she, a girl clinging to dreams on a threadbare budget. Images of judgmental townsfolk filled her mind, their whispers echoing her deepest fears. But beneath the anxiety was an ember of hope. If only he could see her for who she truly was, a girl yearning to make something of herself despite the odds. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With resolve, she knocked on his door, feeling the tremors of uncertainty dance across her body. When Jake finally stepped out, his shyness was palpable, and her resolve wavered. How would he respond to her plea? Would he dismiss her as just another needy girl? Panic surged as she wrestled with feelings of inadequacy. Yet in those vulnerably shared moments, she caught a glimpse of his hidden warmth, a kind of gentleness that soothed her racing mind. The days melted into weeks, and Ellie began establishing a connection with him that surprised them both. She blended her own dreams with his, igniting sparks of creativity he had long buried. But with every shared laugh came a tightening in her chest. Was she only a distraction to him? Could someone like Jake ever really see her as more than a mere worker? As they navigated through repairs and cared for the horses, Ellie felt the cracks in her confidence widen. She stood on the threshold of something beautiful, yet the whispers returned, taunting her with the realities of class divide. The weight of her past gnawed at her heart, a suffocating blanket that threatened to drown her. When Jake faced an unexpected financial crisis on the ranch, panic clawed at her. In that moment, everything became too real. Would she risk her fragile heart for a man stitched together with privilege and obligation? The question burned like a brand, leaving her frozen in uncertainty. The desire to escape her roots battled fiercely with the desire to stay and fight alongside him. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an unsettled glow over the ranch, Ellie found herself caught in a cyclone of fears: fear of judgment, fear of loss, the suffocating dread of rejection. The moment Jake turned toward her, something flickered in his eyes, a challenge masked as vulnerability. She could barely breathe, the air thick with unsaid feelings and looming decisions. Would they find a way to bridge their disparate worlds? Would their connection be strong enough to weather the inevitable storms? As she stood poised at the cliff of change, the swirl of emotions threatened to tear her apart, leaving her more uncertain than ever. Would she take that leap with Jake, or would the whispers of their town pull her back? Ellie awoke with the rising sun, her heart pounding as memories of the previous day's events flooded her mind. The weight of uncertainty felt heavier than ever, wrapping around her chest like a vice. There was a gnawing thought she couldn't shake. How could she bridge the chasm between her world and Jake's? She had glimpsed something deeper during their moments together, a flicker of connection that transcended their backgrounds. But every time she tried to draw closer to him, fear struck like a lightning bolt. What if her presence was just a temporary diversion for Jake, a moment of relief amidst his struggles? Her insecurities clawed at her with savage intensity. As she trudged to the stables, Ellie forced herself to focus on the tasks ahead. She meticulously groomed the horses and listened to their soft snorts, their quiet strength giving her a small sense of stability. Each brush stroke of the comb against the horse's coat grounded her in the present, a soothing counter to the swirling doubts that threatened to engulf her mind. Jake appeared like a shadow around the barn, mopping his brow as he approached. There was a new determination in his stance, something about him that signaled he was ready to take action. Despite her earlier trepidation, Ellie felt a flicker of excitement at the prospect of working alongside him. "Hey, Ellie," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think we need to tackle that broken fence today. I can't have the livestock wandering off." In those simple words she saw an opportunity, not just to help him but to contribute something valuable. "I can help with that," she replied, the tremor in her voice barely noticeable to her own ears. As they worked side by side, sweat glistening on their foreheads, Ellie talked about her childhood, weaving stories of her parents' love for animals with each nail she hammered into place. For the first time, vulnerability hung in the air between them like a warm blanket, and she sensed a shift. Jake's laughter echoed with genuine warmth, drawing her further into his world. Yet as the fence began to take shape, the walls Ellie had built around her heart felt like they were slowly crumbling. The sudden realization hit her. What was she so afraid of? Was it really possible that she was good enough for Jake? Their connection blossomed into something tangible, but lurking beneath was the undeniable presence of two starkly different realities. Later, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting an amber glow that made the landscape shimmer, an unresolved tension danced between them. The skies mirrored Ellie's inner turmoil, a magnificent canvas of conflicts. Would their budding relationship withstand the judgment from those who saw class divides? Or was she simply setting herself up for inevitable heartbreak? In a moment of quiet stillness, Ellie looked into Jake's eyes, searching for answers in the depths of his gaze. She saw flickers of longing mixed with uncertainty, mirroring her own insecurities. Would their shared moments ever be enough to overcome the whispers that flowed through the town? Jake's presence filled her with warmth, but an alarming thought gripped her. What if it all crumbled under the weight of reality? "Ellie," Jake began tentatively, breaking the silence, but before he could finish, they were interrupted by the sudden sound of an approaching truck. The tires screeched across the gravel, and a familiar face emerged, bringing a wave of annoyance and dread. Jake's expression hardened, a family member whose input held the power to shift their delicate balance and pull them back into the harshness of their world. As she watched the newcomer stride toward them, a tumult of emotions roared within Ellie. The confrontation was imminent, and with it came an unsettling question. Would this moment redefine everything they had begun to build together? Ellie barely had a moment to catch her breath before Jake's relative towered over them, an imposing presence that disrupted the fragile world they had just begun to create. As his eyes scanned the scene, Ellie felt an instinctive wave of self-doubt wash over her. Her hands, still holding the hammer, felt clumsy and out of place, a stark reminder of the boundaries that separated her from Jake's life. "Jake," the man barked, his voice like gravel. "What are you doing messing around with this girl?" The disdain in his tone sliced through the air like a knife. Ellie flinched, but defiance rose within her. She fought to stand tall. She wouldn't let his words define her worth. Jake shifted, the hesitance of his own insecurities flickering across his face, but Ellie could see the tension coiling around him. She felt the urge to reach out, to reassure him, but a fierce need to defend herself ignited instead. "I'm not messing around," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "I'm helping fix the fence." The man's laugh echoed, condescending and cruel. "Fixing fences? Is that what you're calling it now? Just like all those other girls who think they can play cowgirl for a day?" Frustration bubbled to the surface, along with an unexpected strength. Ellie clenched her jaw and took a step closer. "I've worked in stables my whole life. I know how to care for animals better than—" "Better than who?" he interrupted, relentless, stepping down to put himself directly in her path. "Better than the folks who grew up here? You don't belong and you know it." The audacity of his words ignited something deep inside Ellie, smarting under the weight of familiarity. Words she had heard before, taunting echoes of her background. Did he truly believe she was an outsider? This confrontation was a test, a moment that demanded a response that could either shatter her resolve or refine it. "What do you want from me?" she asked, a challenge softening her tone, this time standing firm as her anger turned into clarity. "If you think I'm just here to be a distraction for Jake, you're mistaken. I want to work. I want to contribute." Jake looked torn, glancing between his relative and Ellie, his own turmoil evident. "This isn't how I wanted you to meet," he murmured, the strength of his words faltering against family loyalty. The man stepped forward, imposing, his eyes narrowing. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're not fixing anything here, you're just complicating Jake's life." At that moment, Jake seemed to awaken, and for the first time he spoke with clear conviction. "She's not the complication. This is my life, and I get to choose who's in it. If you can't respect that, maybe it's you who needs to reevaluate your role here." Ellie's heart soared momentarily at Jake's defense, yet the shadows of doubt still loomed. As the confrontation intensified, she realized that she had a choice to make: hide behind her insecurities or step into her power. Her gaze locked with Jake's. She silently pleaded for him to see that she wasn't just some distraction. In the charged silence that followed, Ellie contemplated the possibility of standing together, facing the disapproval head-on. Would the warmth of their connection be enough to weather the storm of family expectations? Or would this moment, fraught with tension, mark the end of their fragile beginnings? As Jake's relative scoffed at them, the conflict hanging palpably in the air, Ellie felt the daunting weight of her decision. Would she speak her truth, regardless of the consequences, and confront the negative narrative that threatened to suffocate her budding relationship? The moment stretched, suspenseful and electric, as both Ellie and Jake stood on the precipice, poised to redefine not only their connection but their very identities. Just then, Ellie's phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the tension. She reached for it, her heart leaping at the thought of an unexpected message. What if it was something that could change everything? Ellie's fingers brushed the screen of her phone, her heart thrumming not just with surprise but with the thrill of possibility. A message from an unexpected contact blinked into view, pulling her attention away from the escalating confrontation before her. It was from a former mentor, someone who had believed in her abilities when she often doubted herself. The content was straightforward: an invitation to participate in a training program focused on equine management, a chance to expand her skills and knowledge. But the timing felt ironic. Here she was, battling the insecurities of her past, and yet the opportunity to step further into her future appeared just when she needed it most. It felt like a lifeline, a potential pathway to prove her worth not just to Jake's relative but to herself. "Ellie?" Jake's voice cut through her reverie, filled with concern yet laced with admiration as he caught her eye. "Are you okay?" The weight of her phone felt heavier in her hand as she faced Jake. She could divert her attention to this message, momentarily escaping the pressure of his relative's disapproval, or she could lean into this moment, getting ready to vanquish her self-doubt. I got a message," she replied, her voice tinged with hesitation. Yet inside her the ember of determination sparked anew. Without thinking, she made a choice. "I need to answer this." Jake's eyes widened, confusion flickering across his face. She could see he wanted to understand her sudden shift in focus, to offer support. "No, it's fine," she insisted, the urgency of the message compelling her to stand firm. "It could be important for both of us. For me." As the relative looked on skeptically, Ellie took a step aside, allowing herself a moment to breathe and think clearly. What should have felt like an intrusion suddenly clarified her thoughts. She tapped out a quick response to her mentor, feeling the adrenaline course through her veins. Each word reflected the imperatives: growth, challenge, readiness. It was a proclamation of intent that established her commitment to her own future. Moments later, she hit send, exhaling as the weight of hesitation lifted. Returning her focus to Jake and his relative, she felt a gust of bravery swell within her. I am not here to just help around the ranch. I want to learn, to grow, and to be part of something real, she declared, her voice now amplified with newfound certainty. Jake looked at her with a mix of admiration and concern, as if he too was waking from a daze, appreciating the depth of her resolve, but his relative's expression darkened further. You really think that a few training sessions will change anything? Ellie steadied her breathing and squared her shoulders, emboldened. I know it's not about quick fixes. It's about hard work. I've faced challenges before and I can handle any doubts thrown my way. My past doesn't define my potential. Just because I didn't grow up here doesn't mean I lack the dedication to prove myself. Each word was shaped by the flickering fire of determination in her heart, fueled not only by the desire to win Jake's approval, but by an overpowering urge to claim her space in this world. At that moment, Ellie felt the shift. It was as if she had stepped onto solid ground for the first time in a long while. Yet, the uncertainty of her next steps loomed large. Would this newfound resolve be strong enough to withstand the judgment aimed at her? Would Jake remain by her side as they faced the obstacles unfolding around them? The man scoffed, but Ellie tuned him out, focusing instead on Jake. What would he say next? Would he stand in her corner, or would he pull away to placate his family? Just then, Jake took a deep breath, and she could see the gears turning in his mind. Ellie, we need to figure this out together. His speech faltered, and Ellie leaned in, ready for whatever came next. The emotional underpinning of the moment coalesced. They were at a crossroad, one where everything could hang in the balance. Suddenly, a new buzz interrupted their fraught interaction. Yet again, her phone vibrated. An unknown number this time, and it filled her with the thrill of uncertainty. What new challenges awaited her? Would this call change not just the dynamic at play, but the course of her entire future? The air seemed charged with electricity as Ellie stared at her phone, the screen flickering ominously with the unknown number. What if this was a pivotal moment, one that could send her tumbling into new challenges or opportunities? She hesitated only a heartbeat before picking up, the weight of the last few minutes pushing her toward action. Hello? She managed, her voice steadier than she felt. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet filled with authority and urgency. Ellie? It's Christina from the program. I wanted to follow up on your application. Ellie felt her heart race again, a curious blend of excitement and anxiety intertwining. Yes, I sent my response just recently. Christina continued, her tone brisk yet encouraging. Good. We're assessing participants and your background is impressive. We'd like you to consider coming in for an interview next week. There's a lot of potential for scholarship funding based on your goals. Scholarship funding. The word hung in the air, unlocking a cascade of possibilities. Thank you so much, Ellie replied, her thoughts racing. This opportunity could offer not just knowledge and experience, but also credibility. It could allow her to break through the walls that her past had built around her. As the call ended, Ellie returned her full attention to Jake, who was watching with a mixture of pride and concern. What did she say? He asked, his voice soft but probing. Ellie took a deep breath. I have an interview next week for the equine management program. It could be a scholarship opportunity. His face lit up in a way that made her chest swell with hope. For a moment, the disapproving scowl of his relative faded into the background. See? You're already making strides, he exclaimed. His enthusiasm was infectious, prompting a shy smile from Ellie, illuminating their moment with a shared sense of possibility. But then the shadow of uncertainty crept back as she remembered that judgment was still looming. Jake's relative's voice echoed in her mind, doubting her abilities. Created by experiences that urged her to retreat, those doubts now stirred uneasily within her. Could she maintain this momentum? Was she truly ready to step into a more competitive arena? Jake, what if... Ellie faltered, her voice trailing off. What if I'm not enough? What if they see I'm not cut out for this? No more what-ifs, he interrupted gently, his gaze steady, shards of a deeper understanding forming between them. You are more than enough. Remember what you told me about your past? That hardship doesn't define who you are now. You have drive, and that matters. Just imagine what you could learn. We can work together. A lot, right? She cut in, a wry smile forming. You believe in hard work, and so do I. But talking about it is one thing. Actually doing it is another. Then let's do it together, he urged, his earnestness cutting through the doubt swirling in her mind. You and I can set aside time for preparation, practice what you might need to showcase. I want you to succeed. The blend of dread and exhilaration tightened in her chest. Ellie nodded, feeling the stirring of conviction battling against the remnants of insecurity in her heart. Gazing into Jake's eyes, she recognized a promise, one of support, companionship. For the first time, personal and professional ambitions seemed to mesh seamlessly, intertwined with the shared path she and Jake were forging. As she mulled over the offer of preparing together, a surge of initiative flooded her veins. She had brushed against new horizons that day, but the vastness stretched further ahead. Okay, let's make a plan, she agreed, her resolve strengthening with each word. Just then, her phone vibrated again. She lifted it, bracing herself. Another message flashed on the screen, this time from her mentor's assistant. Also, please review the attached documents before the interview. There are specific requirements that need to be addressed. The nagging doubt returned as her heart raced once more. This could be complexity she wasn't ready for. Another layer of challenge, but Ellie could hardly turn back now. The stakes felt higher than ever, the path darker, but there was a quiet flame igniting her spirit. Would she be able to meet the expectations thrust upon her? As the uncertainty settled around her, a revelation lingered. The moment of truth was approaching. She steeled her nerves and began preparing to face whatever may come next. What awaited her in those documents? Would they illuminate her path or force her into deeper self-reflection? The screen glowed brightly, illuminating Ellie's focused expression as she opened the attached documents. A myriad of expectations unfurled before her, the lines blurring between comprehension and overwhelming pressure. Key details emerged, revealing specific criteria for the interview and a list of skills that seemed to dangle just out of reach. She noticed her pulse quickening as the weight of potential struggles settled on her shoulders. The first section outlined the importance of equine handling experience, something she had touched upon during her childhood, but had since let slip away during the turmoil of her recent life. Memories of grooming horses under the forgiving sun melded with her current reality, painting a picture of what could be if she dared to step back into that world. Yet, doubt invaded swiftly, reminding her that yesterday's familiarity might not suffice for today's challenge. With a deep breath, she tore her gaze away from the screen and stood abruptly, anger bubbling at her own hesitance. If she were to succeed, she needed to confront her past head-on. She moved towards the stables, each step reinforcing her determination. As Ellie reached the familiar sounds of rustling hay and low whinnies, she felt more grounded. The scent of leather and earth enveloped her, evoking memories of simpler times. She smiled softly, recalling how the rhythmic pounding of hooves would chase away her insecurities. Every stride belonged to her, each leap symbolizing triumph over fear. All right, she whispered to herself, the sound nearly drowned out by a whinny from her favorite mare, Bella. As she approached, the mare seemed to sense Ellie's internal struggle and nudged her shoulder affectionately. Ellie's heart swelled with gratitude. Let's practice together. Over the next few days, Ellie dedicated each spare moment to refining her skills. She meticulously reviewed the materials sent by her mentor's assistant, developing strategies and ticked off the requirements as she practiced. Each exercise brought its own frustrating challenges, but also a surge of confidence as she saw positive adjustments in her equine handling each day. Jake cheered her on, sometimes joining her in the evening to lend an extra set of hands with Bella. Yet as the interview date crept closer, so did a sense of impending dread. She had honed her abilities and gathered the necessary documentation, but the fear of failure nagged at her, insisting she quantify herself against the perfect standards outlined in those documents. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Ellie found herself staring into the depths of the stable from the worn wood of the gate. The fading light filtered through the cracks, casting elongated shadows that sent her spiraling into thought. Past doubts crept back, and she questioned if she was truly worthy of this path. The impressions of failure had been etched into her for far too long, and the fear that she would allow it to dictate her fate again threatened to seize her resolve. "Ellie?" Jake's voice sliced through her internal turmoil. He had arrived with an encouraging smile, holding something behind his back. "I got something for you." With curiosity piqued, Ellie stepped closer. From behind him, Jake produced a worn, faded saddle pad, something he'd saved from his own childhood. "I know it's not much, but it's part of my journey, one that led me to where I am now. I want you to have it when you go into that interview. It's a reminder of resilience and capability." The weight of Jake's intention settled sweetly in her heart. The fervor of his belief in her suddenly ignited a flicker of hope that cut through her clouds of self-doubt. It wasn't just a piece of equipment, it was a tangible manifestation of support and faith, a reminder that she didn't need to do it alone. As she touched the faded fabric, she wondered, was this the turning point she desperately needed? Amid the potential pitfalls, could this be the moment that turned her into something worthwhile? A path she could confidently claim as her own beckoned. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Just as things seemed to gain clarity, a text chimed on her phone. The reminder of her interview date nestled within. The countdown had begun, and with it the stakes had lifted. Now all she had to do was decide how fiercely she would confront the potential of falling short. What would she reveal about herself when the time came? Would courage prevail over her demons? As the days passed, the weight of anticipation grew heavier on Ellie's shoulders, but she also felt an ember of determination glowing within her. Each morning began with a run through the stables, a ritual where she'd greet Bella and reaffirm her commitment to her path. The fears still lurked like shadows in her mind, but the gentle nuzzle of the mare seemed to ground her, reminding her of her own strength. Ellie spent her nights poring over the job materials. She created mock interview situations with Jake, where she practiced answering questions that would test not only her knowledge, but her ability to articulate her passion for equine care. "What makes you different from other candidates?" He'd push her, attempting to pull out her essence. She stumbled through initial attempts, revealing a blend of uncertainty and anger at herself for not having clearer answers. Each stumble led her to probe deeper into her experiences, forcing her to uncover the layers of resilience buried beneath self-doubt. One particularly trying evening, Jake posed a question that hit deeper than the rest. "If you could convey one message to the panel about who you are, what would it be?" The silence hung in the air, thick and charged. As frustrations bubbled within, Ellie felt a well of clarity surface. "I want them to see that I'm not just someone who loves horses. I'm someone who understands the journey they've taken to get to where they are. We've both faced hardships. I have the ability to connect with them, to nurture their growth and mine." Jake's nod of approval ignited something within her, a flicker of belief. For the first time, rather than just presenting her skills on paper, she was defining her identity as a candidate in a way that felt authentic. Every day became a training evolution. Her connection with Bella grew stronger. They moved seamlessly together, echoing each other's energy. Ellie learned to read the mare's body language, cherishing the joy of those small triumphs. With every equine maneuver practiced, Ellie gained confidence, developing not just as a handler but also as a person willing to face the discomfort of growth. However, the familiar haunting thoughts returned each evening as darkness set in. What if my past gets in the way? What if I fail when it truly matters? Ellie wrestled with these inner demons, lying awake with her thoughts. But in those moments of vulnerability, she found a strange solace through her conversations with Jake. They shared their fears, and with each layer uncovered, Ellie's resolve grew stronger. "We'll both face failure at some point," Jake said one night, "but it's how we choose to rise from it that will matter." The evening before the interview, Ellie sat on a hay bale with the saddle pad beside her. She ran her fingers over the fabric, recalling the faith Jake placed in her. It was a reminder that she was not alone. This time, She wouldn't simply try to prove her worth by meeting others' standards. She would show their worth through her relationship with Bella. As she prepared her outfit, a sense of transformation swept over her. No longer was she the fearful girl looking back at her past. She was a woman ready to shape her future. That night, she promised herself that she wouldn't shy away from her story. Each scar represented a lesson learned, each failure a step towards triumph. Morning brought a crisp clarity as Ellie walked toward the venue. Each step exuded a determination she had cultivated over the past weeks. She felt the warmth of the sun on her back, and drew strength from every moment spent with Bella. Arriving at the interview, the laughter of other hopeful candidates echoed in her ears, tugging at the strands of insecurity. This was her moment to shine, a moment where she could transform every doubt into her greatest strength. But as she approached the entrance, a chilling feeling slithered down her spine. A stark realization washed over her. What if the questions reflected not only her skills but her worth as a person? Would she be ready to face those probing eyes and deliver a narrative that revealed her true self? The doors loomed ahead and Ellie took a deep breath, pushing down the rising tide of anxiety. This was not just an interview. It was a statement. The time had come to face not only the panel, but also the woman she feared she might still be. Would she emerge stronger, or would the shadows of doubt pull her under once again? The air inside the interview room was unnaturally sterile, each breath feeling heavier than the last. Ellie stepped through the door, her heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The panel, a looming trio of experienced professionals, sat poised behind a long table. Their sharp gazes scrutinized her as she crossed the threshold to what felt like a different realm altogether. Taking a moment to gather herself, she held on to the memories of her training sessions with Jake. This was not just about displaying knowledge. This was her opportunity to share the depth of her journey. With an inhalation, she put on the mask of confidence she had practiced so diligently. They gestured invitingly, and she knew it was time to introduce herself. "Thank you for having me," Ellie began, grappling to keep her voice steady as she faced them head-on. "My name is Ellie, and I've worked with horses for as long as I can remember. But what I offer is more than just experience. I promise to advocate for not just their well-being, but for fostering trust through understanding." As questions volleyed back and forth, Ellie felt herself slipping into a rhythm. She spoke of her bond with Bella, her process of learning to read the mare's body language, and how that translated into her daily life, navigating emotions, both hers and others. Yet with each inquiry probing deeper into her past, a flicker of doubt ignited within her. "Tell us about a challenge you faced and how you overcame it," one panel member prompted. The warmth of the sun outside could not thaw the chill that settled in her chest. Would they see her as just a girl with failures, or could she flip the narrative? Her mind raced, grappling with the urge to defer from the truth she had begun to embrace. But instead of receding, Ellie drew from the strength she'd cultivated amidst the shadows. "I've struggled with self-doubt and the haunting memories of past failures," she admitted, her voice steady despite the uneasy flutter inside. "But it taught me resilience. Each setback wasn't just an obstacle, it was a lesson that equipped me for this journey." The panel leaned in, intrigued. A silence enveloped them, and Ellie could feel their eyes searching deeper. There was an unexpected power in vulnerability, and as she continued, the words became fluid, a narrative of transformation, underscoring her growth rather than her scars. "Working with Bella," Ellie continued, "has shown me that relationships require time and patience. Through my own journey, I learned how to connect with others who, like horses, may have hidden struggles. I can nurture their growth and mine simultaneously." With the last statement, a wave of relief washed over her. The burden of wearing a mask slipped away, leaving her bare and honest. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. Maybe authenticity was a strength, not a weakness. The questions continued, navigating toward technical expertise which she adeptly answered, disguised excitement bubbling within her. Yet, as the panel ultimately discussed their final sentiments, she sensed a shift in energy. One member, a reserved woman with piercing blue eyes, leaned forward. "Ellie, You've communicated your passion effectively, but what are you willing to sacrifice to ensure the well-being of these animals? Her stomach twisted at the challenge. It struck a chord deep within her, igniting the fears that had frustrated her through the journey. Her mind screamed for self-preservation, yet there was something pivotal about this moment. A chance to confront her fundamental beliefs. Ellie straightened, meeting the woman's gaze. I'm willing to challenge any boundaries, including my own comfort zone, if it means providing them with the nurturing they deserve. The panel nodded thoughtfully, and she felt a flicker of hope unfurl in her chest. Perhaps she had made her mark. As the interview concluded, Ellie stood to leave, still wrestling with the thrill of vulnerability. Stepping out, she was met by the rhythmic clamor of the world outside. The sound of hooves in the distance echoed in her mind. Had she survived the gauntlet, or was this merely the beginning of another daunting chapter? The answer rustled at the edge of her consciousness, but before she could grasp it, a realization struck her. She would never be defined by her failures. Maintaining her identity was a journey she would continue to navigate. She had faced one fear head-on. Now it was time to confront another. Just as she turned towards the stables, a figure made its way toward her, urgency etched across their face. Ellie, wait. It was Jake, a handful of papers clutched in his hand, his expression a mixture of excitement and concern. You won't believe what's just come up regarding you need to see this. Ellie's heart raced anew as a wave of uncertainty washed over her. What news could possibly unravel the moment she had just orchestrated? Panic swirled inside Ellie as Jake approached. His urgency cut through her moment of triumph, a sharp reminder that the world around her remained unpredictable. She absorbed the urgency in his movements, the way his brow furrowed, and it pulled her away from her earlier elation. What is it, Jake? She demanded, trying to push the doubt that knotted in her stomach. What's going on? Jake stopped before her, breathless as he held out the papers. It's about the program you just interviewed for. There's news that could change everything. He handed her the documents, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Ellie took the pages, her fingers trembling slightly as she scanned the content. The words jostled their way into her mind. A new training initiative aimed at bringing together the community and fostering equine therapy for troubled youth. But beneath the surface, something stagnant clawed at her. Was she ready to lead something so significant? The idea felt both exhilarating and daunting. You can't be serious, Ellie murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. This is huge. Exactly. They want an experienced trainer, someone who can inspire the young people involved, and I immediately thought of you. After your interview, the panel is impressed. They believe you're the one for this. Her heart pounded against her ribcage, but a noticeable rift of doubt ignited within. What if she failed? Just weeks ago, she had sat in shadow, battling anxiety and fear. Despite emerging from her interview with a spark of resilience, this opportunity felt like stepping onto a precipice. I don't know if I can do it, Jake, she confessed, her own voice echoing her insecurities, silencing the budding excitement just ignited. Jake's expression softened, sympathy smoothing the features that had been carved with urgency. You are more than capable, Ellie. You learned to communicate with Bella, to be patient and to foster trust. Think of what that could mean for these kids. You have a unique ability to connect with them, to lead them through their own challenges. They need someone like you. Yet, as she considered his words, Ellie felt the weight of expectations press down on her shoulders. This was her chance to make an indelible mark, yet the fear of falling short loomed large. But what if I'm not enough? What if I can't fulfill what they're looking for? None of us start out knowing everything, Ellie, Jake replied, leaning closer. It's about growth. You've already faced what felt insurmountable in that interview. This is the next step. Don't let the fear of the unknown back you down from embracing new challenges. She stared at the proposal, the words blurring momentarily as her mind raced through a torrent of potential outcomes. The laughter of children, the whinny of horses, the warmth of light reflected on a community yearning for change. This could be her chance to cultivate a different kind of experience, one that linked her love for horses with healing at a human level. Could she merge these passions? You have to make your choice, Jake urged, his voice steady. If you decide to take this on, you'll grow in ways you never expected. Ellie contemplated the contours of her life unfolding before her. At this pivotal crossroads, she felt the weight of each decision resonate within her, vibrating with potential and risk. It was a long road to becoming the person she believed she could be, a leader, a nurturer, if only she could find the courage to take the leap. A shallow breath surfaced as she closed her eyes momentarily, envisioning who she wanted to become. She could already feel the echoes of her journey resonating back to her, the moments of joy and of heartbreak merging into clarity. "All right, I'll do it," Ellie declared, the determination in her voice palpable as she met Jake's gaze. "I'll take on the role." "Great, we have to prepare," he said, excitement swirling around him. "You won't regret this, Ellie." But as they spoke of plans, anticipation of the challenge tingled through her, alongside an unwelcome twist of anxiety. Was she ready to help others when she sometimes struggled to guide herself? The thought flickered like a ghost, a reminder that her journey had barely begun. Stepping beyond the threshold, each hoofbeat echoed in her subconscious, urging her forward. But as she turned, there was Jake, a new question simmering behind his excitement. "Do you really believe you're ready for this? Because the mind's doubts will erupt like a storm and you'll need to weather it all." The weight of the conversation settled deep within Ellie. She thought of the challenges ahead, questions she had yet to answer within herself. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the barn, she felt the stare of possibility behind her, the horizon stretching vast and uncertain. Her next chapter had begun. Now all she needed to do was to navigate through the storm ahead. With the sun setting, casting a warm glow across the ranch, Ellie found herself standing before the open barn doors, a witness to the evolution of her journey. She marveled at how vastly different everything felt now. The worries that once shackled her heart were relinquished, replaced by an invigorating sense of purpose. She had chosen to enter the equine therapy program, the very opportunity that bridged not only her love for horses, but her passionate desire to help others. As weeks passed, Ellie transformed. No longer just a shy girl burdened by her past, she had grown into a confident woman ready to unleash her capabilities. She developed a strategic plan for the Equine Therapy Initiative, utilizing her personal experiences to relate to the youth who would come seeking healing. Each session became an exploration, blending her emotional insights with the technical skills she refined during her training. Her mornings became filled with exhilarating interactions with horses, teaching her that nurturing wasn't just about care but about forging connections. She implemented exercises that encouraged troubled children to speak through the horse's movements and moods, using the animal's responses as mirrors reflecting their own emotions. The first day of the program culminated in moments of pure elation. Ellie stood proud as she witnessed her participants overcome fears they never thought they could face. One boy, timid and withdrawn, emerged from the shadows to ride Bella, his laughter ringing freely through the air as he found joy and courage. In that moment she felt it, the undeniable recognition that she had found her calling. The little victories stacked up, each success illuminating her path forward. The camaraderie built between the horses and the children echoed Ellie's rediscovery of herself. The fragments of her past, loss, doubt, and conflict, were slowly being sewn into a tapestry of purpose. It was as if every horse she worked with, every child she inspired, was mending her heart in return. Days turned into months, and each session deepened her understanding of resilience. With every challenge she faced, whether it was a resistant horse or a fearful child, she learned the power of perseverance. Moreover, she began healing herself as she witnessed transformation unfold around her. Ellie no longer viewed her past as chains. Instead, she recognized it as the foundation for a bright future. The moment of recognition came during an end-of-program showcase. Parents gathered, smiles reflecting their pride as the children displayed their skills. Ellie felt her heart swell with a palpable sense of accomplishment. As she walked to the front, the crowd quieted, expectant eyes wearing the weight of hope. With poise, she spoke about the journey they had all undertaken together, determination gleaming in her words. "Every horse carries its own story, just as each of you does your own," she began, her voice clear and steady. "But it is in the shared bond that we discover the strength to rise above our challenges." The applause that followed was not just for her, but for every soul in that barn, an acknowledgement of their individual triumphs. The outpouring of love ignited an unwavering belief within her. She had conquered her fears, embraced her purpose, and stepped definitively into her future. By the end of the program, Ellie had not only accomplished her ambition of leading the Equine Therapy Initiative, she had carved out a space for herself, a recognized leader growing in compassion and competence. Tasks that previously overwhelmed her became second nature, the burden of self-doubt lifting like a fog. The shadows that had clouded her path faded, revealing a bright horizon filled with possibilities. As she stood beside Jake, who had watched her growth every step of the way, she realized how far she had traveled from that first timid knock on his door. "You were right," she said, smile breaking across her face. "I did need to embrace the challenge." Jake's eyes sparkled with admiration. "You proved your worth not just to others but to yourself, Ellie. You showed that your past is a powerful tool for empathy, not a limitation." Ellie felt a surge of satisfaction course through her, a fulfillment deeply rooted in her individual journey. She had emerged from the cocoon of her upbringing, transformed into a resilient, confident woman with a purpose that aligned her passions with her experiences. The ranch buzzed with life as she accepted a new position as a consultant for the Equine Therapy Program, leading workshops and mentor sessions for future trainers. It was not only a professional achievement, but a validation that her lost years were now an integral part of a life lived wholly in the present. With the warmth of the sun on her back and filled with gratitude, Ellie turned to face the horizon, knowing that this was just the beginning. She was forging her own destiny, thriving beautifully in the spaces she once feared, and ready to share that journey with others. In that moment, as the wind rustled through the fields, Ellie embraced her next adventure with solid confidence and recognized competence. With a heart full of fulfillment, she knew she had arrived, both for herself and for those she sought to uplift. Now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth just like Ellie's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find these uplifting tales of transformation. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Ellie's journey. Let's keep the inspiration going. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and understand the power of believing in oneself. Don't wait even one more second.